Good morning, everyone. Today I wanted to discuss the second half of the Scarlet Letter and how it reflects feministic traits in Hawthorne's writings. Many critics argued against Hawthorne being a feminist due to the punishments that Hester Prynne faced. I wanted to refer to key arguments that literary critic Nina Bam makes in her essay revisiting Hawthorne's feminism. Prior to reading the article, I was actually torn in believing whether or not Hawthorne was in fact a misogynist or a feminist due to the mental torture Hester faced, especially when she was forced to stand underneath the scaffold. However, after considering his history and analyzing the text, I can agree that he is in fact representing the grievances of women. Hawthorne wanted to be a writer while working in the custom house. His mother was actually a great influence on his writing. It was said that she was an inspiration to the character Hester due to her reclusive nature. Hawthorne also had a wife who would read all his manuscripts prior to publishing, which helped become a great supporter in his writings. Not only that, but Nathaniel Hawthorne actually met with transcendentalists, which he was close to while visiting Brook Farms. He became friends with Ralph Waldo Emerson and Margaret Fuller, who convinced him that New England was becoming a more liberal society. For this next slide, I wanted to mention some key points that Nina Baum makes in her critical essay. She argued that Hawthorne was in fact a feminist. He created the character Hester Prynne to showcase the independent nature of women rather than the necessity of domestic life. One quote that she mentioned from a fellow critic, Louisa de Salvo, that I found interesting is on page 546 in the article. I have all the quotes typed up regardless in case you don't have it on hand. She writes that Hawthorne portrayed with superb accuracy the condition of women in the 19th century and the psychological processes of men who could not tolerate the notion of female equality. I believe that Hawthorne reversed the gender roles in the novel. Dimmesdale was actually represented as a weaker individual due to him always clutching his heart, as you may have noticed Paul witnessing throughout the novel. He was also hiding all his feelings and his shame beneath his cloth of religion. Dimmesdale cowered against any type of independence or change, especially when Hester told him to leave the Puritan society and to start new with a new name, and to live a life with her and his daughter Paul. Whereas Hester was a dark-haired beauty who was represented as a temptress seducing Dimmesdale and who went against Puritan custom. Baum writes in an article, I interpreted Dimmesdale as Hester's foil, weak, orthodox, conventional, and as her temptation rather than she is. While Hester faced her own shame and backlash from the town, Dimmesdale hid behind his cloth. It is still to be debated whether it was a branding notion and whether or not Chillingworth had anything to do with the branding on his chest with his potions. Another key point I wanted to make was that Hester wore the Scarlet Letter with pride and humility, while faltering to the townspeople or obtaining any type of bitterness when they ridiculed her. While facing the stigma, she was still able to embrace motherhood without a father figure for Paul by her side. I believe that Hawthorne was representing women who were going against what was considered respectable at the time. Hester was also able to regain her independence by shedding light on who Chillingworth was to Dimmesdale, and that Chillingworth was in fact her husband. When making this decision, Chillingworth said that Hester was escaping him, and he said, "Go thy ways and deal with thou wilt with yonder man." I believe at this moment this brought about a huge change in Hester, where she could finally regain her voice. Baum also mentioned a quote which I really enjoyed, which was on page 568 of the article. The Scarlet Letter ceased to be a stigma which attracted the world's scorn and bitterness and became a type of something to be sorrowed over and looked upon with awe, yet with reverence too. This leads me to the next slide, in which case I'll analyze a passage that truly resonates with me. If you turn to chapter 13, there are two small passages that I want to read out loud. The first is on the top of page 514. Hester's nature showed itself warm and rich, a wellspring of human tenderness, unfailing to every real demand, and inexhaustible by the largest. Her breast, with its badge of shame, was but the softer pillow for the head that needed one. She was self-ordained a sister of mercy, or we may rather say the world a heavy hand has so ordained her, when neither the world or she looked forward to this result. The letter was a symbol of her calling. Such helpfulness was found in her, so much power to do and power to sympathize that many people refuse to interpret the Scarlet A by its original signification. They said it was meant able, so strong was Hester Prynne with a woman's strength. The letter A started off by meaning adultery, was soon changed into a symbol of admiration for Hester. I consider this to mean that Hester possessed the ability to own herself and her past while still being a constant counsel for others. She was a pillar in the community and did embroidery for the townspeople while also going to the deathbeds of individuals in the town. While facing all this backlash from the community, she was still being humble and possessed kindness to everyone. I believe that the letter A gave her the strength to shift the balance of power while standing at the scaffold, because she was able to embrace and acknowledge herself and her own sins. Yet the people that she was looking at in the town were withholding their own sins to themselves, keeping their own secrets. Even though Hester acknowledged her sins while standing at the scaffold, while being in the prison, and by wearing the Scarlet Letter, she was still holding on to secret to Chillingworth, which is why I brought up previously that once she was able to break that secret, she fully regained her independence, in which case she wanted to continue to wear the Scarlet Letter for all that changed within her. In conclusion, I would have to agree with Nina Baum that Nathaniel Hawthorne was in fact a feminist. He became the voice of women and expressed their grievances through his characters. In the end of the novel, we see that Hester decided to stay where she was and to continue to wear the Scarlet Letter, even on her deathbed. I believe with the Scarlet Letter, she was able to be the pillar of reflection in the community, that the community knew what they wanted to change, and that she was in fact embracing her own independence and giving moral values to her daughter Paul. I wanted to end this presentation with a quote from Baum. The imperfect women who utter feminist sentiments are treated sympathetically and admirably. They have enormous courage and considerable intellect. Even when defeated, they make things happen. Thank you for hearing my presentation. I know it was a bit shaky at times. I get nervous with any type of public speaking, even to a computer. On the following slide, there will be 2 discussion questions and a works cited page. Thank you.